بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum, my dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam. Today's topic is zikr, the remembrance of Allah and the benefits of remembering Allah Azza wa Jal. How does the zikr of Allah benefit us in this world? Not only in the hereafter, but in this world. And exactly what type of zikr is Allah Azza wa Jal requiring from us? To begin with, let me begin with surah number 33, ayat number 35. Innal muslimina wal muslimat. Indeed, the Muslim men and the Muslim women. Wal mu'minina wal mu'minat. And the believing men and the believing women. Wal qanitina wal qanitat. The men who devote themselves in worship and the women who devote themselves in worship. Was sadiqina was sadiqat. And the men who are truthful and the women who are truthful. Was sabirina was sabirat. And the men who have sabr, patience, and the women who have patience. Wal khashi'ina wal khashi'at. And the men who are humble and the women who are humble. And wal mutasaddiqina wal mutasaddiqat. The men who give sadaqah and the women who give sadaqah. Was sa'imina was sa'imat. And the men who fast and the women who fast. وَالْحَافِظِينَ فُرُوجَهُمْ وَالْحَافِظَاتِ. And the men who guard their private parts and the women who guard their private parts. وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ. And the men who remember Allah in abundance and the women who remember Allah in abundance. أَعَدَّ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Allah Azza wa Jal has prepared for them forgiveness and a huge reward. Allah Azza wa Jal in this verse, ayat number 35 of surah number 33, counts off 10 different traits, 10 different attributes. Starting from innal muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat wal qanitina wal qanitat was sadiqina was sadiqat was sabirina was sabirat wal khashi'ina wal khashi'at wal mutasaddiqina wal mutasaddiqat was sa'imina was sa'imat wal hafidhina furujahum wal hafidhat wal dhakirina Allah kathiran wal dhakirat. Out of these 10, which I have translated for you, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the word abundance, kathir, only in one trait. Allah does not say, and the men who give sadaqah in abundance, and the women who give sadaqah in abundance, in huge amounts, in large quantities. No, Allah does not say, and the men who fast in abundance, and the women who fast in abundance. But Allah simply says the men who fast and the women who fast. But when it comes to dhikr, the remembrance of Allah, then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the word kathir. وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. The men who remember Allah in abundance, in large amounts, in huge quantities, and the women who remember Allah in abundance. So the word abundance, kathir, is key. And you will see this word being repeated time and again in the Quran in regards to dhikr, the remembrance of Allah. So we realize the first lesson for today is that Allah Azza wa Jal is asking us for a large amount of dhikr, not just a small trivial amount. Dhikr has its benefits, even a small amount, but you will gain the maximum benefit from the dhikr of Allah if you engage in huge amounts. Another verse of the Quran in which Allah Azza wa Jal mentions kathir with dhikr. Musa alayhi salam, he's asking Allah Azza wa Jal that his brother Harun should be made a prophet. Ushdud bihi azri, strengthen my side, make him a pillar of support for me, strengthen him. Strengthen me through him. And وَأَشْرِكْهُ فِي أَمْرِي, appoint him in this mission. You are sending me to Fir'aun, to the tyrant, the greatest tyrant of all time. I need my brother Harun to be my assistant. And then Musa alayhi salam gives a reason why. كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا. Again the word kathir. So that, O Allah, we can do your dhikr in abundance, and we can sing your praise in abundance. Again, Zakaria alayhi salam, he in old age is asking Allah Azza wa Jal for a son. So Allah Azza wa Jal grants him a son. Now imagine Zakaria alayhi salam close to 90, 100, his wife is almost 90. And in this age, Allah Azza wa Jal grants him a son. And Zakaria alayhi salam is asking, Oh Allah, what will be the sign? How will I know? How will I know? There's no physical sign at this age for my wife. So how will I know? How will my wife know that she has conceived and she is carrying a baby in her womb? Allah Azza wa Jal replied, Allah tukalliman nas thalathata ayyam illa ramza. You will not be able to speak to the people. He was a high priest. He was like the head imam. You will not be able to speak to the people. You will not be able to preach. You will not be able to teach for full 3 days. Illa ramza, except through sign language. وَذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ كَثِيرًا. And then Allah Azza wa Jal gives him instructions. What are you to do? وَذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ كَثِيرًا. Remember Allah in abundance, in huge amounts. There's another verse of the Quran which is very direct. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O you who believe, remember Allah in abundance. There is a verse in the Quran in which Allah Azza wa Jal describes the traits, the habit of the hypocrites, that la yadhkuruna Allah illa qalila, that they do not remember Allah except for very little. In other words, they do the dhikr of Allah, but in very small amounts. إِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى. When they stand up to pray, they stand up with laziness, with a heavy heart, dragging their feet. They are not excited or eager about praying. قَامُوا كُسَالَى وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And they do remember Allah, but in small, tiny amount. So now it is time for some reflection, that we do the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, but do we do it in abundance? In the battlefield, when you are engaged with the enemy in hand-to-hand combat, Allah Azza wa Jal is giving instructions. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, idha laqitum fi'atan, when you meet your opponent on the battlefield, fathbutu, be steadfast. Your feet should be firm. Do not turn your back to the enemy. Do not run from the battlefield. Do not show cowardice. Be steadfast and firm. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, and remember Allah in abundance. In other words, even though a person is swinging his sword right and left on the battlefield, his instructions are that he should remember Allah in abundance. What happens is the true benefit of dhikr, and we'll come to the benefits of dhikr in a minute. The true benefits of dhikr are derived when a person remembers Allah in large amounts. We haven't seen wells in this country probably, but some of the countries where we come from, the people will dig a deep hole in the ground, a well, so they can extract drinking water. Now, if water is to be found at 80 feet and you dig a hole 70 feet deep, what will happen? Will you hit water? No, water is at 80 feet. You dig another hole 70 feet. And you did not reach the desired amount of 80 feet, the required amount of 80 feet, and you stop digging, you will not be able to extract water. You can only extract water when you dig the required number of feet, which is 80. So there is a benefit. There are benefits of dhikr that come with kathir, with an abundance of zikr. And that benefit cannot be derived without remembering Allah Azza wa Jal in abundance. So what are some of the benefits? It will have, first of all, dhikr will have an effect on the parts of our body. It starts with the tongue, dhikrul lisan. The starting point is the tongue, but it will soon affect the parts of our body. Dhikrul aynain, the dhikr of the eyes, is that a person cries out of the fear of Allah. Dhikrul aynain al-buqa, that means dhikr is having an effect on his body, on his eyes. Otherwise, a person will say, you know what? Other people are crying, I can't cry. There must be something wrong with me. This is a moment to remember Allah. But for some reason, tears are not flowing down my cheek. There's definitely something wrong with this person spiritually. He's not able to cry. The Sahaba, they were known for their excessive crying. No matter how brave and courageous they were on the battlefield, but they would cry like toddlers in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. They would be mounted on horseback. They would be mounted on horseback during the day, and they would be mounted on their sajada, on their prayer mat at night. They were warriors by day and monks by night. So this sifat of crying comes when the heart is soft, and dhikr will soften the heart, and then tears will flow from the eyes. Another effect of dhikrul udhunain, is that a person, he listens attentively to what is being said of good speech and good counsel. If someone reminds him of Allah, if someone says ittaqillah, fear Allah, then he becomes God conscious. Why? Because dhikr, now he has the ability, his ears have the ability to not only hear but to listen. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Sometimes we call out to our children while they're busy playing a video game or watching their favorite cartoon, and we call out their name. They can probably hear us, but they're not listening. They're definitely not listening. So the people of Jahannam, when they will be escorted towards Jahannam, alam ya'tikum nadhir, the angel who is the gatekeeper at the gate of Jahannam, at the gate of the hellfire, will ask them, alam ya'tikum nadhir. In Surah Mulk, didn't any warner come to you? Didn't somebody come to you to explain to you that this day was going to come? Didn't any prophet come to you? Qalu bala. They will say, yes, prophets came to us. فَكَذَّبْنَا وَقُلْنَا مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Prophets came, but we denied, we rejected them, and we said, مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Allah has not sent down any revelation. No wahi has ever come down. And then they would say, لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ. Only if we listened. Only if we listened. لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلْ. Or used our intelligence. مَا كُنَّا فِي أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. We would not have been from amongst the dwellers of the fire of hell. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So one effect of dhikr is on the eye. The other effect is on the ears. The effect of dhikr on the hands is that the hands become generous. Because this person knows that everything is from Allah, and whatever I have been given of the blessings of Allah, the wealth that I have been given is from Allah, and I will return back to Him one day. It is better that I spend it in Allah's cause and to help humanity at large. Now generosity will be in his hands. He will be generous with his hands, with his wealth, spending with his hands. Why? Because dhikr has taken an effect on his hands. Similarly, dhikrul badan, the dhikr has an effect on the whole physical body. And what is that? Al-wafa, loyalty. Now a person shows his loyalty to Allah Azza wa Jal, loyalty to the commands of Allah Azza wa Jal. He puts Allah Azza wa Jal first and on top of everyone and everything. This is called dhikrul badan. And then dhikr has an effect on the ruh. And what is the effect of dhikr on the ruh? The effect of dhikr on the ruh is at-taslim wal-rada. In other words, he is content. He is content with whatever Allah Azza wa Jal has destined for him. He knows that whatever rizq Allah has written for me, I cannot get a single penny more, nor will I get a single penny less. Whatever Allah has destined for me, I will get. At-taslim wal-rada. He is content with his destiny. And dhikrul qalb, the effect of the dhikr on the heart is bayn al-khawfi wal-raja. Then his heart will have fear and hope. Fear in the punishment of Allah and hope in the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. These two, both of them are desired traits. If a person has too much hope, that's not good either. If a person has too much fear, that's not good either. He needs the correct blend of the correct composition of these two. Some scholars have suggested that it is better that in the early years of his life, during his youth, he has more fear of Allah than hope, and towards the end of his life, he has more hope in Allah than fear. So anyhow, that's the effect of dhikr on the heart, khawf wa raja. Similarly, one of the effects of dhikr mentioned in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ, Surah Baqarah, Surah number 2, ayat number 152, Allah Azza wa Jal states that you remember me and I will remember you. This is the benefit of dhikr. We just went through the 6 benefits of how dhikr will have a positive impact on the parts of your body. Now we're moving on to how dhikr will affect your relationship, your direct relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Oh my servant, if you remember me, I will remember you." Now, when we remember Allah, we say Allah, Allah, wadhkur isma rabbik, remember the name of your Lord. So we say Allah, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. But how does Allah remember us? What is He going to say? Is He going to say, Abdi, Abdi, my servant, my servant, my servant? How will Allah Azza wa Jal remember us? What does this ayah even mean? Remember me and I will remember you. It means that if we remember Allah by taking His beautiful names, then Allah Azza wa Jal will shower His mercy down upon us. And Allah will make decisions that are favorable to us, that are in our favor. And Allah will pave the way for us and remove the difficulties of this life for us in our time of need. That is the meaning of Allah Azza wa Jal remembering us. Yes, we remember Allah with the beautiful names, and He remembers He remembers us with paving the way and removing our difficulties and showering His mercy down upon us. Now, another benefit of zikr, which I consider extremely important, is that dhikr is what cultivates the heart. Zikr is nur from Allah Azza wa Jal. Quran has its own nur, light, illumination from Allah Azza wa Jal. And Salat has its own illumination, and it affects the heart and it will enlighten the heart. Now this enlightenment of the heart that comes through these different acts of worship, some of this nur is heavy and some of this nur is light. Let me give you an example. The Quran's nur is very heavy. Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila." O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we are going to put upon you a heavy burden. In other words, heavy, thaqil, referring to what? The Quran. How was the Quran heavy? Did it weigh 100 pounds, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds? How was the Quran heavy? Thaqil. It was heavy in terms of its illumination, the nur that the words of Allah Azza wa Jal carried, that direct speech of Allah. That is some very heavy stuff. Now, compared to the dhikr of Allah is light. The dhikr also has the nur, also has light that will illuminate our hearts, enlighten our hearts. But that nur is light, the nur of the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, as compared to the Quran, the nur from the Quran, which is heavy. Now, what happens is sometimes a person who is not accustomed to light food, if he tries to eat heavy food, his body will reject it. His body will not digest it. It's better that he first cultivates his stomach and his stomach first becomes accustomed to light food before he tries to eat and digest heavy food. Example, a baby, it will start off with the mother's milk. Why? Because the mother's milk is light. If you give it cow milk, the first day, you will have to probably take that baby to the hospital. Why? It's still milk, whether it's the mother's milk or the cow's milk. There is a difference. The mother's milk is light and the cow's milk is heavy. Sometimes we try to benefit from the Quran, but the nur, the light of the Quran is heavy, and we don't benefit as we should be able to, because we haven't accustomed our heart to becoming a receptacle for receiving this light. So first we have to cultivate our hearts and make sure it is able to receive the light of Allah by starting off with light nur, with something that is lighter than the Quran, and that is the zikr of Allah. Once a person engages in the zikr of Allah, now his heart has become a receptacle for nur, and it can take on more and more and more heavy nur and heavy illumination, enlightenment from Allah Azza wa Jal, which the words of Allah Azza wa Jal carry. So I hope we have understood this topic to some extent, the benefits of the dhikr of Allah, and what exactly does it mean that we remember Allah and Allah remember us, and how to cultivate our hearts, starting off with dhikr, so we are able to receive and enlighten our hearts with more and more illumination from the revelation of Allah Azza wa Jal and from other acts of worship. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
صل على محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيبي يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيبي يا نبي الله يا رسول الله.